Yo guys, girls, we are back with another reaction video of Warhammer 40k Primarchs. This week we have 17th Legion, World Bearers, Aurelian, something. His name starts with an L. Wargar, Aurelian, and original video is in the description. Please leave original video a like, and if you enjoy my reactions, you can also leave a like. If you didn't, well, you know, maybe my reaction is not your cup of tea. I'm not gonna say anything. We're just gonna begin because nothing happened in the last couple of days. I've just been sick and I was playing a lot of Minecraft. Like, even now recording this, I am on a Minecraft server. Yeah. So yeah, let's begin.
All I ever wanted was the truth. Remember those words as you read the ones that follow. I never set out to topple my father's kingdom of lies from a sense of misplaced pride. I never wanted to bleed the species to its marrow, reaving half the galaxy clean of human life in this bitter crusade. I never desired any of this, though I know the reasons for which it must be done. But all I ever wanted was the truth.
So I guess LORGAR just wanted to acknowledge that we're Chaos God, I guess.
The Primarchs of his Imperium would instill loyalty and fealty within the hearts of mankind. Paragons of humanity, capable of sundering empires and uplifting civilizations, the charisma, charm, and deeds of the sons of the Emperor would never be exceeded by mortal men. Yet their exceptional power would not only hasten his Imperium's rise, but also its catastrophic downfall. For today, we shall elucidate the architect of the Horus heresy and devastation of the Imperium of Man, the Primarch of the 17th Legion, LORGAR Aurelian.
Dude, but I gotta say, he looks so fucking cool. Like, I like Aurelian LORGAR.
With the scattering of the Primarchs across the stars, the young child of the 17th Legion would be cast to the planet of Colchis. A world rife with superstition and religious ideology. The subjects of the planet would bask in the rays of the heat of the sun and worship fell gods steeped in feudal tradition. Once a technologically sophisticated world, Colchis had stooped to the zealous fervor of the ruinous powers taught by its people as the Old Faith. Disease, war, and tyrants would rise and fall in the ebb and flow of the planet's historical record, and its people would learn to accept their lot in life. Yet with the arrival of the child of the Emperor, the planet's transformation would begin. Discovered by the peoples, known as the Declined, their chieftain, Fan Morghal, would name
Kinda Declined, kinda soothing name. Because I think, isn't, like, in some way Aurelian LORGAR is the reason why Horus got corrupted in the first place?
the Primarch LORGAR, the Raincaller. Quickly maturing, within the span of 17 days, LORGAR had grown to the size of a young child and would meet the first of his mentors to set him on the path of damnation. Corferon, an exiled priest of the planet's ruling religious sect, the Covenant, would pass through the encampment of the Declined. Seeing the favor of his patron gods within the young boy, Corferon would convince the Primarch to become his disciple. Murdering Fan Morghal and the Declined peoples, Corferon would hide the origins of his now adopted charge and begin to convert the young Primarch to his beliefs. Physically and mentally abusive in his methods of tutoring, Corferon would mold the boy into a convert of the Old Faith with a peerless understanding of its fell teachings. Incorporating his own belief that there was a being known as the One, LORGAR would transform his understanding of the Old Faith from a polytheistic doctrine into a monotheistic religion.
So I guess he started to thinking of someone as the one as a god, and I think he meets the emperor and Lorgar thinks to himself, that is the one.
Dismissing the Primarch's notion of the one, Corferon would continue to abuse his foster son for his belief, and so deep.
How can that little guy compare to Lorgar bully like Lorgar, you know? It doesn't make sense. Lorgar can probably punch that guy to death.
Within Lorgar's psyche, a perverse dependency to his guardian.
These cases are so sad.
With time, Lorgar would grow in stature and be beyond the physical torment.
Oh, maybe he was at that time he was still like a small kid. And it's just the visual that he gave me felt like he was, you know, twice the size of that his foster father.
Of his father. Pathologically loyal to Corferon, Lorgar's prowess as an orator would garner the Raincaller many followers. Known as the Godsworn, Lorgar's ever-expanding band of zealots would soon challenge the dominance of the Covenant. Naming their leader the Bearer of the Word, Lorgar's Godsworn would liberate the downtrodden slaves of the planet across its settlements and march for the capital city.
Bearer of the Word, guys, that sounds so good.
Of Varadesh. Lorgar's army would descend upon the city of Grey Flowers, and after conducting a sermon at the gates of Varadesh, the low-caste priests within would open the gates to the city. Presenting the corpses of the ruling ecclesiarchs of the Covenant before Lorgar, the Bearer of the Word would not stand idle as he commanded his Godsworn to conquer each neighboring city. Converting swaves of Colchis to his cause, Lorgar would preach his faith to his disciples. For years, the Godsworn would battle the heretics to their faith, and with time, Lorgar would descend to become the ruler of Colchis.
Oh wow.
Proclaiming his foster father, Corferon, as the new High Priest of the Covenant, Lorgar would look to the stars for the arrival of the One. Seeing visions of a being clad in bronze armor, accompanied by a towering Cyclops, Lorgar would see to the proclamation of his portents of the future. Members of the Covenant would decry such teachings, and as a schism grew within its ranks, its leaders would attempt to arrest Lorgar for his heretical.
They didn't believe Lorgar. Oh, they thought basically he was full of shit and was lying about the One.
Views. Yet upon attempting to seize the Raincaller, Lorgar's disciples would tear his assailants limb from limb in a deranged frenzy to protect their prophet.
Jesus fucking Christ.
A holy war would erupt upon Colchis and bathe its citizens in blood for 6 years. Storming the Cathedral of Illumination and killing the dissident monks within, Lorgar and his Godsworn would enact their great purge across the planet and follow their new archpriest in their devotion to the One. Knowing his true name to be the Emperor,
he even knew the name.
Lorgar would await the salvation of his people by his prophesied God, safe in the knowledge that his arrival would be imminent. The Emperor would descend upon Colchis during 857.M30, a solar year after Lorgar's conquest of his homeworld. Accompanied by his son, Magnus
The Cyclops is Magnus. But at this time Magnus already told he lost his eye because he made a pact with the Chaos Gods to save his legion.
Red, the master of mankind would meet with the Bearer of the Word. Falling to his knees, Lorgar would praise the being before him as his people in unison knelt before their Messiah. The true God of mankind had descended from the heavens.
True God of mankind.
And on this momentous day, the people of Colchis would be enraptured by his visage. Accepting his long-lost son with open arms, the Emperor would install Lorgar as the leader of the 16th Legion, the Imperial Heralds, and task the Raincaller with joining the Great Crusade. Accepting his offer with vigor.
Look at this armor, dude. That's like so cool. Oh my god, dude. I can't.
Lorgar would venture into the stars, proclaiming the divinity and salvation offered by his father. Admonishing Lorgar's treatment of his stature as a god, the Emperor would nonetheless allow the newly renamed Word-bearers and their Primarch to wage their campaigns across the galaxy, reorganizing the 17th Legion into a force of relentless scions.
And again, look how easily they accepted LORGAR as their leader. There was like there was no problems basically, like some other legions.
Of the Emperor's divinity, LORGAR would allow for his guardian Corpheron to undergo surgeries to ascend to the stature befitting his most trusted counsel.
Oh, no way! So he basically, his foster father could not have become a space marine, so he basically just did surgeries to make him bigger.
Putting non-compliant worlds to the sword should they reject the Emperor's emancipation. The Word-Bearers would be merciless in their application of violence to any whom would object to the Master of Mankind's divinity.
Oh, I was like, really? And then like, when he finished the sentence, I was like, oh, it makes sense. Because they truly worshipped the Emperor as a
punishing
god.
Blasphemy, heresy, and idolatry of pagan superstition, the 17th Legion would cleanse the galaxy with purging flame. The Word-Bearers' campaigns would stall by virtue of their ritualistic sermons and spectacles of worship.
Yeah, I guess stall is a good word, because everything was basically a spectacle. I guess they didn't meet the minimal requirements of world conquest during their crusades. As I recall, aren't world bearers like the slowest at bringing other worlds to compliance?
And for their willing ignorance of the demands of the Great Crusade and their Emperor, the Word-Bearers would be punished.
Yeah, but how?
Unquestionable in their loyalty, the Word-Bearers would nonetheless prove to embody every one of the greatest flaws at odds with the imperial truth of the Imperium. Unable to allow their zealous ways to continue, the Master of Mankind would summon the Ultramarines Legion and their Primarch, Rabute Guilliman, to censure the 17th. Upon the world of Kerr, the entire might of the 13th Legion, alongside the Legio Custodes, would descend upon the planet city.
That's just flex. We all know, like, the Ultramarines have the biggest amount of, well, Space Marines. And that's just a flex to descend all of them on LORGAR and his boy.
On Monarchia. The Emperor and his most trusted advisor, Malcador the Sigillite, would confront the Urizen. A symbol of the Word-Bearers' religious devotion, Monarchia epitomized every flaw that the imperial truth espoused to prevent. Worshipping the Emperor as a god, the so-called perfect city, teeming with cathedrals and places of worship, was an affront to every ideal the Imperium stood for.
Isn't it crazy how 10,000 years later, this is what Imperium has become? Dude, oh god, now I get it when Bricky said LORGAR sits there smiling. Because this is just crazy how crazy Imperium did the 180.
Ordering the Ultramarines to raze the city to the ground, though reluctant with his orders, Primarch Rabute Guilliman would comply. LORGAR and his legion.
Of course he would comply. His god sent his apprentice to stop him. Of course, if God says him to stop, he stops.
Would be forced to kneel as they helplessly watch their perfect city burn at the hands of the Emperor's enforcers.
That's harsh.
Humiliated by the 13th Legion, the Word-Bearers would be shamed by the Legion encapsulating the imperial truth's teachings to the letter. LORGAR had failed his people, his legion, the Imperium, and most of all, his father.
Imagine how you feel. You preached your God, everyone followed you, everyone believed you, and some time passes that the same God that you preached for is now destroying everything you have built. How that would feel, I have no idea.
Boundless grief would be sown deep within LORGAR's very soul as he watched his cathedrals of stained glass and marble fall to the gunfire of the Ultramarines.
Because this isn't just...
LORGAR's devotion to his father would be ripped from his heart, and in the wound which took its place, a festering resentment would bloom. For the golden...
But that's reasonable. Like, tell me, if you were in LORGAR, please, tell me you would be like, suck it up, chump. Don't tell me that bullshit. That's why you cope. Don't lie to me. No one, I don't think there's any sane person that would cope with that and move on.
One would never forget this slight upon his legion, and would slowly begin to plot revenge for the destruction of the paradise he had created. Withdrawing from the public eye of the Great Crusade, the word-bearers would stew in their disgrace. Their devotion to the Emperor as a living benevolent god had been proven false and shaken their purpose to the core. Unable to accept responsibility for his own failings, LORGAR Aurelian would venture into the galaxy to find answers befitting his ego. The ruinous powers would call to the Urizen for their influence.
But even then, he failed because he brought lesser worlds to compliance. You know, the other legion, let's say if other legions did like 100 worlds per some time, LORGAR did like 20. But is it really so bad? He still brought worlds into compliance.
Had always been rooted within the Primarch's upbringing, from his adoption into the old.
It's like one thing is doing some, you know, when I worked in, I worked as operator in Germany and there was like, during a shift, which was 8 hours, you had to make 80 metal parts for cars. And so that was like minimum requirement, you know? So if you would do less than 80, you would get shit. I would do like 112. That was like my peak performance, like 112. Nothing changes. If I would be like the rest and did 80, I would still get the same money. I actually don't even know why I'm even telling this. It's just, I don't know. I feel so bad for LORGAR Aurelian. It's like, I have to defend him.
Offering atonement for his doubts in the Emperor, the forces of chaos would speak through the honeyed words of Corpheron and the first chaplain of the word-bearers, Erebus.
Erebus.
Resolving to seek out the beings whom had called to him, LORGAR would pilgrimage alongside his 1301st Expeditionary Fleet to the Cadia system. Watched closely by 5 members of the Legio Custodes, appointed by the Emperor, LORGAR would descend upon the world of Cadia and meet with a barbarian.
So also, Emperor doesn't trust LORGAR so much that he sends his bodyguards to basically make sure LORGAR doesn't do any shit. Dude, that's crazy, dude. LORGAR did nothing wrong.
Human tribes upon its surface. Met by the purple-eyed inhabitants of the planet, LORGAR would speak with the leader of the cultists.
I remember that in Darktide there's a setting that if you're from Cadia you have purple eyes. So I guess all planets in that area where Cadia is all have purple eyes.
A female priestess known as Ingefell. Conducting a ritual by sacrificing the custodian Zendatha, Ingefell would transform into a being of chaos and whisper lies into the ears of the Urizen.
Did she transform into sexy werewolf lady?
King of the Eldari race had birthed a being known as Slaanesh into existence, and through ignorance and fear, abandoned their new patron's majesty. Grieving for the rejection of its divinity, she who first would punish the Eldar for their transgression. This deception would fuel LORGAR's naivety, as Ingefell imparted a warning that should humanity wish to survive extinction, they must not follow in the Eldar's footsteps and submit themselves to the worship of chaos and its pantheon of gods.
Okay, whoa. Even here I'm like, okay, LORGAR, that's... I know you don't like the Emperor because of everything, but come on. You cannot trust them.
The word-bearers dispatched to the Eye of Terror within orbit of Cadia would return to their Primarch, transformed by the ruinous powers and bearing word of their own revelations. Believing the lies of Ingefell, LORGAR would order his warships to bombard Cadia in order to conceal the knowledge of the primordial truth. He alone would be the herald of the gods of chaos, and through their influence, the Urizen would achieve vengeance against the Emperor.
Okay.
Unsatisfied with his knowledge of the primordial beings of the Immaterium, LORGAR would venture into the heart of the Eye of Terror.
He went there, oh my god, willingly.
Piloting a Stormbird into the heart of the storm, LORGAR would be accompanied by Ingefell as his demonic guide. Upon the remnants of the Eldar craft world, Zulasa, the Raincaller would observe the carcass left in the wake of the birth of Slaanesh and be confronted by an avatar of the Eldar, Cain. The ruined being of former divinity stood before the Urizen and with his Crozius mace, Illuminarum, LORGAR would bludgeon the Avatar to its painful end.
Dude, it's like, why can't they actually make the... It's like, I feel like the Elder Gods are like, they're like always so frightening, but they always get like beaten to shit. Like, come on, LORGAR beat Cain, but gets his ass whooped by every other Primarch, but he beats a god of Elders, of Rage.
Demanding further insight from Ingefell, LORGAR would be transported.
I'm saying this because it hurts, as I literally, most of the time I play as Elders and it hurts, you know?
Through space and time to the Eternity Gate of the Emperor's Imperial Palace. Granted a vision of the Siege of Terra, the Urizen would watch as thousands of Phasmantagoria of the Legiones Astartes bled and died around him. Rogel Dawn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, led his men against a horde of barbaric space marines clad in arterial red. They were his sons, their slate grey supplanted with shades of freshly spilled blood. They had cast aside their old beliefs and reinvigorated with new purpose, sought to bring the Imperium to heel. Watching his Astartes transform into demonically possessed warriors, LORGAR would marvel at their terrible might. At their vanguard, his most blessed son, Argel Tal, would charge against the great angel, Sanguinius, and perish as they clashed. This glorious promise of the future would impress upon the Primarch as his mind began to process what he had seen. Yet another vision would be gifted to LORGAR of the homeworld of the Crimson King. Prospero burned at the hands of the Rout, to which LORGAR would be horrified that such a destiny would befall the Thousand Sons. LORGAR would enact the war of vengeance against the Emperor, though he would never be its leader. He would be its witness. The Emperor would pay for the treatment of his deeds, and the Word-Bearers would lead the charge to rend the still-beating heart from the Imperium. Each Primarch in his place would rule the Imperium or corrupt it to their own cause, but not LORGAR. LORGAR would destroy it completely and forge a new future from the ashes. Returning to the material realm, LORGAR would begin his slow treachery against the Imperium. Sowing the seeds of betrayal within the hearts of his Primarch brethren, the catalyst of the civil war of humanity, Horus Lupercal would be the linchpin to sunder the Imperium. Ordering his first chaplain, Erebus, to stand at the side of the War Master, the plot to corrupt the champion of the Emperor would with time be achieved.
So, I always thought that Erebus acted on his own view, but I guess LORGAR was like, you go chill next to Horus and corrupt him. I knew that Erebus corrupted Horus, but I never knew that it was LORGAR who sent Erebus closer to Horus.
40 years after his venture into the Eye of Terror, LORGAR would join Horus in his betrayal.
40 years. It took 40 years for them to corrupt Horus and basically start Horus
of the Master of Mankind. Aiding in the purge of the loyalist elements within the traitor legions upon the world of Istvan Free, the Word-Bearers would relish the chance to sate their blades in the blood of the Emperor's subjects. Achieving further reprisal against the loyalist counterattack of the Emperor on the world of Istvan V, LORGAR would assemble commanders from the Iron Warriors, Night Lords, and Alpha Legion in their alliance to join the War Master's rebellion. Employing his skill as an orator, LORGAR would further embolden the resentments harbored within the Lord of Iron, Night Haunter, and Hydra.
Yeah, but that's all I can see. How I think it's orator. It's like he can't fight properly. He can't, he's basically the hype guy. Like, have you seen like if you ever watch like a rap battle and someone clearly brings his friend and the friend tries to hype his best buddy in the background, so that's how I feel about LORGAR.
Taking to the field during the Dropside Massacre, the Urizen would lead his men in their holy war against the Emperor's staunch defenders. Turning on their allies, the second wave of the Legion's assault would surround the Loyalists and massacre their amassed strength.
Damn.
Engaging the Salamanders and Raven Guard, the Word-Bearers would unleash their armored vehicles against the exposed ranks of the 18th and 19th Legions. Seeking to staunch the wound inflicted to his forces, the Raven Lord, Corvus Corax, would charge into the skirmish and confront LORGAR. Carving a path through the Word-Bearers, Corax would duel the Urizen and prove to be more than a match for the Primarch, known for his lack of martial prowess. Impaled through the stomach by Corax's talons, LORGAR, through desperation to survive, would break his brother's nose with a strike of his skull until the blades within him would be retracted. Fated to die, the Urizen would, with the intervention of the Night Haunter, be spared, though for the remainder of his life bear the wounds to his face, clawed by the Raven Lord.
Oh, that's actually a nice detail. I was wondering why in some pictures he has like some like clawed his face.
Healing from his grievous wounds, LORGAR would join the War Master aboard the Sons of
I'm talking, guys, sometimes before I start the video, I like just Google pictures and I saw a lot of them, like LORGAR had like scars. I was like, are they canon or are they just, you know, the art? And I guess I saw a lot of arts after Corvus Corax carved, basically.
Horus' flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, as the deliberations of the Conclave of the Primarchs began. 9 Primarchs had been mustered to wage war against the Imperium, yet already signs of change within them had begun. Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's Children, had become possessed by a demon, whilst Magnus the Red now bore power gifted by the Changer of Ways.
Yeah, at this time Fulgrim was only corrupted by sword, not transformed into the Slanesh being.
Disgusted at his brother Fulgrim's total submission to a lesser being, LORGAR's notion of symbiotic cooperation with the forces of chaos would be challenged by the presence of this husk of the Phoenician. Storming from the chamber, LORGAR would return to his own flagship, the Fidelitas Lex. Conversing with the Crimson King, Magnus the Red, LORGAR would reveal his knowledge of the fall of the Eldari and the birth of the Prince of Pleasure. Cautioned by his brother not to indulge too deeply with his manipulations of the powers of the warp, Magnus would warn his brother that such dealings would invite malicious interlopers from the Immaterium. Ignoring the Crimson Lord's counsel, LORGAR would meet with the War Master to discuss their next objective in their crusade against the Imperium.
Okay.
The Ultramarines would prove to be the gravest threat posed to their rebellion, and for them to succeed, the Lords of Ultramar must be kept from interfering. The treachery of the Word-Bearers had been contained within Istvan, yet it would not take long for the 17th to show their intent. Traveling to the Calf system under the guise of reconciliation, the Word-Bearers would meet with the Ultramarines. Fueled with the memory of their once proud city of Monarchia, the Word-Bearers would parley with the Ultramarines until their time to strike would be ordered. Led by...
Yeah, but I think at this time they should probably in some sort of way do a colossal damage to Ultramarines. Like, bro, if I would, you know, if they did that shit to me, bro, I know I would lose, but I would do as much damage as I could, basically.
Corferon, the warships of the 17th would bombard the docked Ultramarines' vessels, and in a surprise attack, slaughter the unaware and vulnerable Astartes. Annihilating clusters of the fleet of Ultramar, the Word-Bearers' revenge would be achieved.
Oh, really?
As droves of demons would be summoned into the
Oh, that was so simple. They achieved their revenge.
system by rituals and sacrifices. Corferon's men would jettison Rabute Gilliman into the vacuum of space, yet be unable to slay the stalwart son of the Emperor. As the 13th Legion retaliated, the Word-Bearers would poison the son of Calf and summon a gigantic warp storm to entrap the Ultramar system. The ruin storm would spread its wicked tendrils across the stars, alike to a great wound. Yet LORGAR's hunger for vengeance would not be sated. Simultaneously, LORGAR's forces and the World Eaters Legion would rampage across the Ultramar system as they harried the populaces to mark their Shadow Crusade. Further draining the Ultramarines of resources and able-bodied souls, the barbarism of the Shadow Crusade would stall with the worsening state of the Primarch of the 12th Legion, Angron. The 500 worlds had been bled, yet upon the Lord of...
We raided 500 Ultramarine worlds. That's insane.
Red Sands
I think that's a good, how to say, revenge for one single planet of, well, world bearers.
Homeworld, the Urizen would search for a means to cure his brother of his affliction, the Butcher's Nails.
Yeah, they tried to cure Angron.
Finding no balm for his dying brother upon Nyceria, the 12th and 17th Legion would butcher the High Riders and rabble of the planet. Yet with their haste to cure Angron, the Ultramarines had regrouped and tracked the Shadow Crusades leaders to the world of Nyceria. The Retribution fleet of the Ultramarines would destroy Lorgar's flagship, the Fidelitas Lex, and led by their Primarch, descend upon Angron's homeworld. Facing his most hated brother in combat, Lorgar would attempt to slay Rabute Guilliman, yet prove no match against the Lord of Ultramar. Before the killing blow could be dealt, Angron would launch himself into the fray and battle Guilliman. Their clash would enrage the Primarch of the World Eaters, as a misstep of Guilliman would crush the skull of one of Angron's long—
Yeah, that's the Angron had his he carried the skulls of the friends he couldn't save, and by accident Guilliman crushed one of
comrades
them.
in arms as it fell from a bandolier of his armor. Drawing upon Angron's rabid grief, the Urizen would feel the presence of the gods of chaos and enact a ritual to transform his brother into the avatar of the blood god, Khorne. The ascension of the Red Angel would force the Ultramarines to retreat, and with the 13th once more withdrawn from the conflict, Lorgar would turn his attentions to the final battle to decide the fate of humanity. Lorgar had proven to be a worthy conduit for the will of the ruinous powers. A true disciple of the gods of chaos, Lorgar would resent Horus for his failure to fully submit to their will.
So he didn't like that Horus basically gained the power, Horus basically united them all, but Lorgar didn't like that he didn't submit like everyone else.
Foreseeing that only through total surrender—
I mean, it's from what I understand, like, Horus didn't like fully submit, though he was corrupted. And Conrad Curse also didn't submit to Chaos. All other Primarchs were in some way affected by Chaos.
To their patron gods would victory against the Emperor be achieved. Lorgar would plot to overthrow Horus to become the War Master. Confiding his plans to his Dark Apostle, Zardu Lyak, and the Primarch of the 3rd Legion, Fulgrim, Lorgar would meet with Horus Lupercal aboard the Vengeful Spirit. The War Master had fallen during the Battle of Beta Garmon by a wound of the Dionysian spear. Leman Russ, Primarch of the Space Wolves, had delivered the blow and come close to slaying the Champion of Chaos.
No way.
In orbit of Ulanor, as the traitors mustered their remaining forces to assault Holy Terror, the Urizen would attempt his coup. Though with forewarning from the Crimson Apostle, Horus would attack Lorgar and prevent his betrayal from being achieved. Beaten to within an inch of his life, the Urizen would be banished from the War Master's sight and ordered to not interfere with the remainder of the Horus heresy. Retreating from the amassed fleet of the War Master, Lorgar would be slain should he ever return to the presence of the Lupercal. Decrying the war to be lost beyond all hope of salvation, the bearer of the words ravings would with time be proven true.
That just goes to show, returning to my point I made earlier, you listen, the hype guys, you always need a hype guy in your life.
The War Master would fail in his rebellion to overthrow the Imperium, and in the wake of his civil war,
So I always, gave shit that Iron Warriors were the first one to run away. And I always thought like, okay, Iron Warriors left and everything started to crumble. I guess it was in reverse. Well, if they basically told Wargar to fuck off, so I guess the 17th Legion Warbears were the first one to leave.
damn humanity to wage an endless struggle of survival. Lorgar would in the millennia following ascend to the form of a demon prince of chaos undivided and seek penance for his failure to conquer humanity in the name of his patrons.
But in what way? I don't see. Why would he need penance if we told him to fuck off? Did I miss something?
His faith had been rewarded, yet his pledge to the dark gods still remained unfulfilled. Isolating himself within the Templum Inficio upon the demon world of Sikaris, the Urizen to this day has not been interrupted in his meditations. However, rumors stir that the Archpriest of the Primordial Truth has been harried by the Raven Lord of the 19th Legion, and after a bitter duel, followed by years of isolation, the Urizen embarks upon the material realm once more, leading his legion to bring his wretched sermons and litanies to worlds unfortunate enough to stand in his path, and convert any willing to surrender their souls to his foul benefactors.
LORGAR wrote something several years ago that nourished my thoughts each day and night since he shared it with me.
The World Eater snorted, showing just what he thought of his pious Scrivener Brothers' musings, but Russ was unfazed.
"It was not that corruption is recognized,"
Russ quoted.
"It must be opposed. It is not enough that ignorance is acknowledged, it must be defied. Win or lose, what matters is making a stand for the virtues we will bequeath to the human race. When this galaxy is finally ours, we'll hold a worthless prize if we plant the last Aquila on the last day on the last world, having led humanity into moral darkness."
Angron listened, but cared little. Even then he was a stubborn creature, taking spiteful pride in his own isolation.
"LORGAR wages war with a quill,"
he said.
"but the galaxy will not be brought to heel by crude philosophy. Your ideals are meaningless."
Damn.
This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer.
Thank you, Remembrancer.
The Urizen's wisdom would be corrupted in his naive vision to uplift humanity through the pledge of worship. His cunning mind and honeyed words, capable of manipulating countless souls in his quest for salvation, no matter the cost. Yet in my final transmission of the Primarchs of his Imperium, we shall elucidate the twin
Your ideal.
Oh my god. Oh no.
Final trends of misdirection and subterfuge. Alfarius Omegon.
Not Alfarius. I think the guys have Vulcan, then Corvus Corax, and then Alfarius. He's gonna be the last one. But it's kind of sad that our journey with the Primarchs is gonna end soon. That's kinda a bummer. But what else? We'll somehow manage. Yeah, again. Great vid. I thought that I would hate LORGAR, and this might shock you, but I actually like his backstory. I think he's a greatly written character. I like everything about LORGAR. You know, I truly can envy and I think I can understand him. You know, it makes a lot as a character. You know, I think as a character he is extremely interesting and really important to the whole war. I really hope they would expand on him more. Yeah, as a chaos guy, I like him. I like him a lot. On that note, guys, I'll simply see you in the next one. Ciao, Kakao. I just wanna play Minecraft.